Hello traders, good day to you all. This is Christopher Glen from Plus Financial, and this is a daily market review for the current market status. As you can see, we had several announcements this morning regarding the Australian dollar that gave additional strength to the Australian dollar, just as it did last night, yesterday, sorry. We have received the same expression regarding the Australian dollar, and I said that I'm expecting the Australian dollar to gain an additional strength in the market. Since then, the markets were pretty slow, pretty boring market, as I like to call it. But still, we've got several good potential trades coming up ahead. First of all, we've got several announcements regarding the pound itself, official bank rate, and asset purchases facility. I'm not expecting them to deliver an enormous amount of liquidity, although they are red announcements, because as you can see, usually we've got a very stable, we don't have any deviation in the bank rate. We haven't had deviation in the bank rate for the last half a year at least, and then I'm not expecting it to deliver any kind of liquidity. And regarding the assets announcement, again, you can see that it's a very gray announcement. It's marked in red because it is a very important announcement, but no change will cause no effect on the market. After that, we've got several other announcements regarding the euro, regarding the US dollar, FOMC meeting. Very important announcement, definitely. It's a speech, and then we've got a Canadian dollar announcement, euro, US dollar at the same time, unemployment claims, as we always have on Thursday, and the European Central Bank press conference is a very important announcement as well. Again, we will receive several details regarding the euro. I remind you, several days ago we've received announcements from Draghi from the European Central Bank, and that caused the euro to lose some strength in the market. Right now we're expecting to see an additional information regarding the euro. I told you yesterday that I'm expecting the euro to gain a bit more strength in front of the dollar before a large drop down. That might be the call that will begin that move, stronger euro in front of the dollar. Over here we've got the Canadian dollar announcement, and after that again we've got another announcement regarding the Australian dollar. Let's go to the charts. What I want to do today, I want to analyze the Australian dollar specifically. And I will conduct an analysis regarding the condition of the Australian dollar, and again I will use the Australian dollar as the equivalent point so that we'll be able to see what is our expectation from the entire market. First of all, Australian dollar versus the US dollar. Today it's moving higher very nicely, very liquidized movement. We can see that this move that we see over here is basically an A pattern, a B pattern dropping down, and a C pattern is expected to climb up. So we've got a very long-term potential for an uptrend movement that came after a very long downtrend movement against the Australian dollar. The dollar gained a lot of strength in front of the Australian dollar. We can say that we've received a third wave over here, a fourth wave over here, and a fifth wave completing the move. Generally, this market should even climb a bit higher until 0.97, but at the moment the expectation is a bit smaller movement until 0.93. That is my expectation regarding the current move from on behalf of the Australian dollar. Once it will form a bit more movement, then I'll be able to continue the analysis, see what structure I'm receiving, and according to that I'll be able to try to predict the continuance of the movement according to the elite wave analysis. So regarding the Australian dollar, the assumption is that the Australian dollar should gain strength in front of the dollar. So in this case I'll mark it like this. We're expecting to see an uptrend movement, meaning Australian dollar stronger than the US dollar. Australian dollar versus the Swiss franc. Since this point over here, when Switzerland changed the interest rate and then caused the Swiss franc to lose a lot of strength in the market, we saw that we moved in an impulse movement. That is an A wave of a larger cycles corrective pattern. And right now, we analyzing this structure of a downtrend movement, we see a very clean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, why I'm saying that this is a casual, it's supposed to be an A wave of a larger corrective pattern, because that's the formation that I'm receiving in front of all the other currencies when I'm placing them in front of the Swiss franc. But in this case, I will say that at the moment it seems like the Australian dollar has formed an A wave, a B wave, and a C wave, meaning that here we've completed the corrective pattern regarding the Australian dollar, and since then we're falling in 5 waves. Now that doesn't mean that I'm expecting to see a continuance of a downtrend. It means that I'm expecting to see, once we've completed this 5 wave move, I'm expecting to see an uptrend that will pull back toward this area. That's a logical corrective pattern. Now that means that even in front of the Swiss franc, we're expecting to see an uptrend, again on a daily chart, a long-term analysis. So both Swiss franc and US dollar are supposed to express weakness in front of the Australian dollar in the current status. Let's see on other charts what is the assumption. Australian dollar versus Japanese yen. I'd like to talk about the Japanese yen currencies generally, saying that on a variety of assets in front of the Japanese yen, I see a potential of a downtrend movement. If you look at other assets on the daily chart, you'll see that the dollar Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar Japanese yen, the euro versus Japanese yen formed an A, a B, and a C. And they're reaching toward the completion of the C wave, not like the Australian dollar in front of the Japanese yen. Now, I'd like to say that for the closer period, I'm expecting the Japanese yen to gain some strength. It lost a lot of strength for the last several weeks, and I'm expecting it to gain some strength in front of the majors. But the Australian dollar is expected to lose the lowest amount of strength in front of the Japanese yen. So anyway, I will leave the Australian dollar versus Japanese yen asset alone, because while the Japanese yen will gain strength expressing downtrend movement on all the other assets, the Australian dollar is expected to form the lowest amount of movement down. So no potential to invest toward a downtrend movement using the Australian dollar in front of the Japanese yen. Still, in this case, I'm expecting the Australian dollar to lose some strength in front of the Japanese yen, but not that much, so I'll place them in an equivalent point, meaning not stronger and not weaker. So dollar, Swiss franc are expected to lose strength in front of the Australian dollar, and the Japanese yen is expected to form a continuance of a choppy overlapping movement sideways corrective pattern. Australian dollar versus the New Zealand. Australian dollar versus the New Zealand. I really don't like this asset very much, because Australian dollar and New Zealand both are forming approximately the same strength and weakness. Usually when we're analyzing strength and weakness correlation in the market, we can see that Australian dollar and Swiss franc, or euro and Australian dollar versus New Zealand, or euro versus the Swiss franc, both combinations will reflect very slow and indecisive movement. We can see that for the long term we had a very nice downtrend movement, no question about that. At the moment, analyzing this chart, I see a potential of an A, a B, and a climbing C pattern. That is the potential at the moment toward this area, and then a continuance of a downtrend movement. So at the moment, even in front of the New Zealand, I'm expecting to see a stronger Australian dollar. That will be a stronger Australian dollar for the next several weeks, again 2-3 weeks, and then I'm expecting this chart to drop down. A good potential for an uptrend movement. So over here, again, for the closer structure, I'm expecting to see an uptrend. I will mark this channel as an uptrend movement towards Australian dollar, stronger Australian dollar in front of the New Zealand, but eventually I'm expecting the New Zealand to gain strength and then to see a continuance of a downtrend movement. As we've already talked about the Australian dollar versus the Canadian dollar yesterday, I'm still holding the position over here. I told you that I'm expecting to see an uptrend. We've received an uptrend, a very nice and clean uptrend movement. That was 70 pips, a bit more, 80 pips of an uptrend movement. It's since yesterday, and I'm still expecting to see an uptrend movement over here, no question about that. When I'm analyzing all the chart, as you can see, I'm placing the Australian dollar as a very strong currency. Strong currency in front of the dollar, Swiss franc, Japanese yen, New Zealand, and Canadian dollar. Now, again, what I want to do, I want to open a scale and I want to show you how, according to this analysis, I'm basing some sort of an opinion regarding the market. So I've talked about the Australian dollar and I've talked about the Japanese yen. We've said that they are approximately the same strength and weakness. Below the Australian dollar, I find the US dollar, the New Zealand for the close time frame, not the short for short-term investment for the next 2 weeks, not more than that, and Canadian dollar, obviously, continuing the last day's analysis, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, the Swiss franc as well. So, according to the Australian dollar, it seems like the Australian dollar is it's going to be a pretty strong asset. Just that if I'm saying that on the Australian dollar and I said that the Japanese yen should gain some strength in the market as well in front of the Australian dollar, then my assumption is that we can use both assets, Australian dollar or Japanese yen, in front of all the dollar, New Zealand, Canadian dollar, and Swiss franc group toward stronger Australian dollar or Japanese yen. All assets, if you're using indicators and you see a potential that form this potential, then I advise you to take the trade. From here, from Plus Financial, I wish you all the best with your trades. Have a pleasant day and bye bye.